What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. It is week 10, and we are on to the Wednesday slate. Nice Conference USA doubleheader tonight. Before we get started, if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. Those are two ways to help a small channel like this out a ton. If you've done that, thank you. I can't tell you how much it actually means and helps. If you have a request for later in the week, on Friday, we're taking all of your requests for extra games we did not get to. You can leave those in the comments, and I will get to as many as I can. And last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, first things first. Same rule of thumb for Conference USA. These injury reports are important. Last night, we were able to pick up a UTEP plus 13.5 because of the injury report. And it ended up covering by that half point. If we bet this ahead of time, it was not going to cover, and it did not if you took like a +9 or a 10 earlier in the day. So injury reports, very, very, very important for these games. Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee. Jacksonville State is a 5-point favorite in this game. The over-under right now is 54.5 points. Very weird season for Middle Tennessee. It has been a large disappointment. You have to think it's getting close to calling it quits for Mason or getting fired. I don't know. They lost to an FCS team, Austin Peay, in week 1. And since then, their lone win against Nevada was 14-13 with a 50% post-game win expectancy that came in week 3. Since then, they've lost to Marshall by double digits, Kennesaw State by 8 points, Missouri State by 2 in a game where they actually had a 57% post-game win expectancy. And then they dropped the game to Delaware last week, 31-28 with a 68% post-game win expectancy. This Middle Tennessee State team is a little better than their record indicates, and they actually have 2 games on their resume that they lost where they had a better than 50% chance to win based on the plays on the field. Football's a funny game. Meanwhile, Jacksonville State's off to a pretty good start this year. They had the touchdown loss to UCF in the opener, which was a good game, and a quality loss, even though it was a loss. Then they beat Liberty, lose to Georgia Southern by a touchdown, lose to Southern Miss in probably their worst loss of the year. Followed that up with wins over Sam Houston by 2 points in a game. They had a 27% post-game win expectancy. And then they also beat Delaware. That one was more towards your blowout. It was 38-25, 90% post-game win expectancy. Delaware continues to do some stupid stuff that gets them in trouble every week. They fumbled at their own 17. That was a Jacksonville State touchdown immediately after. They also had a fumble 6. You don't have either of those two, and then you maybe win this game. However, Jacksonville State did miss a pair of field goals in that contest. Injuries in this game. Jacksonville State looks to be pretty healthy. Again, you never really know with Conference USA. Lance Johnson, an offensive lineman, a starter, he was out there last game. And Traquan Fegans at corner, he was also injured for Middle Tennessee State. There's a lot of players they're rotating on and off the field, so these might be more performance-related than injuries, but limited snaps for Zach Clayton, Marcus Miller, both offensive linemen, and defensive backs Jawan Gaston, Ricky Smith, and John House. Just based on the numbers on the back end, for me, the only players that actually provide mathematical upgrades based on their performance would be House and Gaston, the 2 secondary players. So something to watch in the secondary for Middle Tennessee. Not quite sure what we get. For the quarterback position, let's start with Jacksonville State's offense. Really weird team. They go from Rich Rod to this, and it's honestly not that different. Their quarterbacks are all run-first players. Caden Creel got banged up in their last contest, but he's going to start this game according to all reports. They've had the bye in between to get him healthier. He's almost inept as a passer. The 67% completion percentage is okay, 6.7 yards per attempt, but 0 big-time throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays. What you can say is he's not taking a lot of sacks, but that's because the offense is just limited. This is a glorified service academy. I mean, their pass rate is 131st, pace is 57th. This team has no interest in throwing the ball. And I'm not really sure I would either, given the personnel. Creel is very mobile. And if you have to go to a backup, I mean, Wimsatt is mobile too, so that's not even a big drop-off. Wimsatt's played plenty this year. You have maybe the best G5 running back, definitely the best Conference USA running back, Cam Cook, the TCU transfer. He's 51 yards shy of 1,000 yards rushing this year. That's how much this team is running. That's incredible. Now, when you are forced to throw, Brock Rechsteiner, you're number one. He's the only one above 200 yards receiving. Brock Rechsteiner is almost built like a tight end kind of. He's this big 6'4". You can almost use him as a jump ball receiver if you need to. That doesn't really seem to be a strength of Jacksonville State, but this is all how you get to 133rd in receiving efficiency and 27th in rushing efficiency. It's just a weird offense, but it's a fun one for this conference. And it's nice that we get to spotlight these teams on a Wednesday night. Now, the offensive line is built to run the ball as well. 49th in run blocking, 82nd in pass blocking. They have only played one top 100 defensive line all year. That was Southern Miss, so that needs to be noted. But it's still a pretty good unit. Reggie Jackson and Amari Grayson are solid at tackle and guard. Those are your top two players. The only impactful injury to watch here was that Lance Johnson. Without him, they had to drop to Adrian Gum, and that was a pretty impactful injury. It definitely affected the overall productivity of the line and one I would be watching. This is kind of a tough matchup on paper, man. Middle Tennessee is not a bad defense. They're 66th, and their best unit is that front. They're 32nd overall. They've done a pretty decent job limiting opposing rushing attacks. The only ones above 5 yards per carry were Kennesaw State, Nevada, and Wisconsin. They have allowed quite a few passers above even like a 9 yards per attempt, which isn't good. Like Amari Odom for Kennesaw was at 8.9. Deuce Bailey, he was at 9 yards per attempt. He's the backup for Missouri State. So, I mean, there is definitely some concerns with what they've allowed in some of these spots. But at the same time, you look and see what this unit has allowed via the ground game and where this team succeeds. I think there might be a chance they stop Jacksonville State. All their best players are defensive linemen. DeMonte Smith, he is the most efficient defender on the entire team. He's a defensive tackle. Anthony Bynum, he is a very good edge rusher. And then even Shakai Woods at defensive tackle to complement DeMonte Smith. Those are probably your best players. So that leads me to potentially thinking Middle Tennessee State can get enough stops in this game to maybe affect Jacksonville State's offense. You know what's coming, and those are where your best players are. It's very, very tricky backing a Middle Tennessee State at all, but do think they have some advantages on defense. As for their offense, Nicholas Vadiato, 61% completion, 6 yards per attempt, 5 Big Ten throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays. All of them converted to interceptions. He's run a little bad there. He has taken 17 sacks. The offensive line is not horrible. His 22% pressure to sack ratio is too high, honestly. The receivers haven't done him much favors. Nearly an 8% drop rate. And that brings me to this receiving core. They just have lost so many players year over year, and it's kind of weird the way they're using it. They're 120th in receiving efficiency. Nasai Cox leads the team with 390 yards, and Cameron Lacey is second at 308. But Cameron Lacey hasn't even hit 50% of the snaps in most games this year. It just doesn't really make sense. I don't know if this is a playbook thing. He can't stay on the field between the ears, or their coaching staff is just inept. It honestly could be either. The coaching staff certainly has looked inept at times this year, but he is the most expensive player. Even the broadcast realizes this. Just doesn't make sense for him to be playing this amount, 50% or less, almost every game. It's kind of weird. They do have a decent run game. It's 89th in efficiency. Jakal Middlebrook is basically shouldering a huge workload, 5.8 yards per carry, and he's caught 26 passes. If you stop him, a lot of times you just stop Middle Tennessee State, even though this team is ranked 4th in pass rate. They just don't have really any capable receivers or a quarterback that's making a difference right now. Honestly, Jakal Middlebrook doing a lot in the pass game from the backfield has helped them. Offensive line here is very bad. They're 132nd in pass blocking, 117th in run blocking. They've only played 2 top 50 defensive lines, not towards the top of that unit, either towards the back, Nevada and Marshall. They did make a change recently. Otto Jancy Van Rensburg took over. That kind of gives them a decent interior because Mateo Guevara and Ellis Adams were already above average. The problem with Middle Tennessee State the entire year has been their tackles with Jacob Otts and Joseph Habanowski. That has not gotten any better, but maybe they've made an upgrade with this Van Rensburg guy coming in. I don't know much about him, and he's only really played significantly in one game, so that kind of leaves at least some questions. Jacksonville State's defense has been pretty good. They're a little bit imbalanced. Better in coverage, but that's not to take anything away from their defensive line. They've played a lot of middling offenses this year, but even with a stronger secondary, they have allowed some production back there. Nick Minicucci for Delaware, 8.4 yards per attempt. J.C. French, Georgia Southern at 8 yards. Liberty's Ethan Vasco was at 11.6, and Taven Jackson from UCF was at 9.5. And then meanwhile, Liberty, Georgia Southern, Southern Miss, Sam Houston, they were all at least 4.5 yards per carry or better. So it's a good defense. It's a defense that has cracks nonetheless. You have your two best players at safety, Trevor Woods and Malcolm Jones. And then I think your defensive line could be better. They rotate a lot of players in here. Emmanuel Oyabadejo and Isaac Walker are good off the edge. Talon Carter, Juwan Campbell inside. But you still have a lot of guys moving in and out of the lineup for that defensive line, including like Curtis Perry, who's originally played he was at Alabama at one point. Daryl Prater, these guys just aren't quite living up to expectation, even in Conference USA. So you can beat this team in certain areas. It's still a pretty good defense overall. They come in 72nd in run defense, 33rd pass rush, 61st in coverage. Can Middle Tennessee State have success on this unit? I mean, they should. This offense has definitely underachieved this year, having a multi-year starter at quarterback. Yeah, the receivers aren't fantastic, but your O-line is I had higher expectations for this unit, not by a lot, but being 132nd in pass blocking is horrible. Maybe they're a little better given that change, but honestly, where I think this comes in, I'm looking at a potential under. You've had Vadiato play horribly this year. Creel definitely is limited. If Middle Tennessee gets the opening drive and scores, Jacksonville State could be stone dead right from the get-go in this game. So the under shows the most value for me, which I'm a little nervous because pace is above average. And the other place you could potentially look is Middle Tennessee State. They're around +5 right now. This is bouncing all over the place. I see 4.5s and 5.5s. It was 6, so Middle Tennessee State has already taken some money. This is the side I prefer, but as usual, after what I did last week, I'm not breaking my rule and betting any of these Conference USA games before the injury report comes out. So that's where we lean. If you force me to bet it now, that's where we'd be, but we will wait till tonight to see what happens. Second game, Florida International takes on Missouri State. This game has a 4-point spread in favor of Missouri State, a 50.5 total. This is a fun game. I'm not sure Missouri State has done enough to be favored by 4 points in this game. You look at what their schedule has entailed. They lost to their two good opponents, USC and SMU. That happens. They beat Marshall by 1 point. A really weird game. Marshall's played super well since this. They outgained Marshall 6.8 to 4.8, so that was week 2, but it needs to be noted. They followed that up with a loss to Western Kentucky. They beat Middle Tennessee State by 2 points in a game with a 43% post-game win expectancy, and then they beat New Mexico State in overtime in one of the craziest games I've ever seen last week for a G5 team. They had a 60% post-game win expectancy, but New Mexico State threw 4 interceptions, and I think 3 of them were complete jokes. One of them was a tip. One of them was an egregious one. And then Fife threw an interception on a play he was trying to throw the ball out of bounds. I don't know that I've ever seen that. How are you so inaccurate? You don't even have to do anything to throw the ball out of bounds. And he threw it to a defender on the sideline who made a shoestring tiptoe catch. It was kind of shocking, man. I don't really understand. Now, Missouri State had their fair share of turnovers in that game as well. They threw an interception that went straight to a New Mexico State touchdown. And, there were missed field goals in this game. I don't really know. It was a very gross game that goes to overtime, and they end up winning. But, man, has not looked good for Missouri State since then. 4 injuries, Dallas Payne, Justin Kine at tight end for FIU. Xavier Chapman got hurt again on the offensive line. Now the second week in a row. He only played 4 snaps. He's someone to definitely watch. Missouri State looks fully healthy. They have a couple offensive linemen that have been limited, but those guys should be benched anyway. That might be more performance than anything. For the FIU offense hitting the road, Keon Jenkins has had a bad season. A lot of it coming early in the year. He has somewhat rebounded. Good game in their second most recent, kind of a bad game in their most recent. He's now at 6.2 yards per attempt. 4 big-time throws, 12 turnover-worthy plays. It's a really bad ratio. 4 interceptions, so he's even run hot here. The pressure rate's just really high. It's at 37.5%. He's only taken 12 sacks somehow. This unit is a little better than last year, but it's still pretty limited. They're 115th in pass blocking, 45th in run blocking. They're rotating both right guard and right tackle still, and it's week 10. It's a little late to be doing this. That gives them just 2 above average full-time starters in Jakeem Buchanan and Jaleel Davis. It's a very limited unit. And I think it's hurt basically Jenkins more than the run game. Keyshawn Owens and Anthony Carey are still playing pretty well. 7 yards per carry for Owens, 5.2 for carry and a change of pace. But this pass game, it's limited for one reason or another. There might be a couple reasons. Jenkins definitely is a contributing factor, but the offensive line still being 115th in pass blocking with all this experience is just not tenable. And then they lost all their good receivers. You lose a guy like Rivers. And I mean, now in Patterson even, now you go to Alex Perry leading this team with 355 yards. It's inconsistent, man. And they've rotated players. They have dealt with some injuries. They've played some freshmen. It's just not a tenable situation long-term, even in the Conference USA ranks. So I get why their offense is stalled. I don't know if it's going to get any better. It's kind of asking Jenkins to be a hero or just relying on the run game. And when you have a defense with liabilities, it's just, you can't really play that way. We saw it against Kennesaw State where they gave up a ton of explosives. They were asked to play in a shootout and they couldn't do it. Now, Missouri State is 111th in total defense, 127th against the run, and 38th in coverage somehow, which is very weird. They've not faced an offense ranked higher than 61st. That was SMU. But they have allowed some production through the air, even if it's where they're better. Maverick McIver got them for 8.1 yards per attempt, and of course, Jaden Maeva did. But honestly, where they've been weak is that defense, the line especially. Western Kentucky, Marshall, and USC all over 5 yards per carry against them. And I'm just not sure there's much talent with this unit, and it makes sense jumping off from the FCS ranks. All their best players basically are on the back end with Jordan Dunbar, like Jalen Brooks at linebacker. Your best defensive lineman is Mitchell Toney on the edge, and he's playing in a rotation. So you have like below average Devon Townley playing above him. Inside, like Ryan Williams and Sterling Smithson have both been well below average. Best path is just run the ball down your throat. Unfortunately, that's probably what FIU is going to be doing at this point. Their pass rate is 70th in the country. There's a chance that this plummets with how bad they've been throwing. As for Missouri State, they got back Jacob Clark. He's definitely an upgrade on Deuce Bailey, but it's still a little up and down for him. 64.2 completion percentage, 8.2 yards per attempt, 13 big-time throws to 10 turnover-worthy plays. He also has taken 22 sacks. The pressure rate is really high, 40% from that offensive line, but his individual pressure to sack ratio is 25.6. That's way too high. It's well below average. He needs better pocket presence. And I'm not sure it's going to get a lot better. The offensive line, honestly, it's not a good unit, but it's imbalanced with a strength towards pass blocking. They're 56th in pass blocking. They're 134th in run blocking. And they've played some decent defensive lines, so I kind of buy these numbers. There's only 2 above-average players that are at least playing full-time roles in Matthew Green and Eric Cade. And even Eric Cade, he's played a limited role this year. He only has 196 snaps. So run blocking, it's going to be a problem, and it has been through most of the year. Shamari Lawrence, actually the FIU transfer, revenge game for him, 4.6 yards per carry on a pretty good workload, but the efficiency is just not there for him. He also cedes pass game work to Ramon Green, who's the second leading receiver on the team with 316 yards. But that shows up, this offensive line, in the rushing efficiency. Lawrence is having to do a lot on his own, and it's led to just the overall 106th ranked rushing attack. But meanwhile, with this pass blocking, and you're still allowing a 40% pressure rate, Jacob Clark is hanging onto the ball too long. He needs to get rid of it, give it to his receivers. I don't think this unit is as good as we thought. The top 2 are Dash Luke and Ronald Johnson. Your second leading receiver, again, is a running back, and you just haven't gotten your transfers like Makai Cope from Utah or James Blackstrain from Georgia Tech. They're not playing as much as we thought. That's either bad coaching or most likely they're still not that good and probably not even capable of playing at this level. Sometimes that happens. Anyway, you're playing an FIU defense that I think is better than what they've shown, man. I mean, this team, they're very similar to Missouri State. Missouri State's very bad against the run. FIU is 128th in run defense and 30th in coverage. That makes sense with their player personnel. You have like a Miami transfer back there and Brian Blades at corner, Mr. Clark. He's also in the secondary. Those are your two best players on the entire defense. So I get it. This is where you're going to be strong. And it's just a path of least resistance up front, man. Like Johnny Chaney's good at linebacker, but who else is there to stop the run? They're 128th in run defense, 109th in pass rush. This is an awful, awful defensive line. So Missouri State, they're definitely not a pass or a run first team. They're 31st in pass rate, but man, you have to think maybe they try to double down on this with Shamari Lawrence, get their run blocking unit going, even though it's a bottom 3 unit in the country. I'm not sure. But ultimately, when you look at everything that these teams have done, it favors FIU, in my opinion. And I could see myself getting there by the end of the night. We only make it +2, but definitely some injury stuff to watch as usual with Conference USA. And the other place you could potentially look is an under. This pace is not good. You have FIU 98th and Missouri State at 83rd. So that would be another place I look. Just to sum this up, and most likely places to bet, we're almost certainly going to take an under in the Middle Tennessee State game. It's coming in over a little bit right now, just money where it's coming in. And then I would be interested in taking both a Middle Tennessee State and an FIU if the injury report looks a certain way. But that'll do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow. We have another doubleheader, I believe, on deck with some Sun Belt teams. And then, of course, the 3-game Friday slate and then a full Saturday. Until then, thank you guys for watching. Good luck, and we will see you next time.